So good morning, everybody. Assuming most of you are in the Eastern time zone, I don't know that for a fact, but hopefully,
Hello.
hi Thomas. Hopefully you're all well. This is Theo Stiegler for Nexus for Change and BGSU for the teaching online transition meetings that we've been convening every Tuesday and Thursday. Glad you all are here. We had initially set out to talk about discussion boards today. We're probably going to table that for next week, probably Tuesday. To have that conversation more in depth because Steve would want to be here for that and he is not able to be with us right at this moment due to a previous commitment with BGSU. Some of the folks that are here had asked me, and we have sort of made it a point to try and share with one another good meeting practice and good virtual engagement practice. And one of the things that we've been talking about is how do you align a group? How do you engage a meeting? We talked in one of our last sessions about that it's really important to engage each student as best as possible and sort of maybe offer a check-in where every person can check in just around how they're feeling, not necessarily related to the content of your conversation, discussion, or the syllabus, but just to have sort of an open forum where every voice can be heard to hopefully lower sort of the bar of resistance or discomfort with people sharing in this virtual environment. There are other ways that you can align and gather a group. You can do breathing techniques. You can share a piece of music. But one of the ways that folks certainly use are funny anecdotes and jokes. And one that I have shared with some folks in the past that is significant to two ladies that are here on the call. We found out last week that their father is about from southern East Germany, about 30 minutes away from where my dad is from. And my dad's a now retired minister, but in one of his first churches that he was a pastor of, we had an elder who was a German literature professor. So his German was very, kind of like you would think of the Queen's English, that's his high German was very impeccable. He taught literature at one of the oldest universities in Europe. So he was a very refined gentleman. And you couldn't tell in his German speaking voice that he had this very distinct accent in Germany from southern East Germany, where all the hard consonants get dropped and become soft consonants. So every T becomes a D and every K becomes a G and so forth. And you couldn't tell in his German. You could, however, very clearly tell when he started speaking English, for some reason that accent would creep in. And so when he would greet a congregation, for example, we had a partner, a sister church in Sweden, when the visitors would come from Malmö, he would greet everybody in this manner. He would say, "My dear brothers and sisters, I am so happy that we're here together today, that we can have this time here to be gathered in the name of the Father and the Son, and that we have this time here to gather now. And so I hope that some of you are smiling just a little bit, and we can now start the session." The intention for today is just to have an open conversation and identify if there are needs that you have, if there are questions that you have, if there are things that you're just interested in terms of how to leverage this virtual engagement. Obviously, we're on Zoom. I just heard that as of yesterday, I believe, Google has disabled Zoom for all of their employees on employee machines. They have what is called Google Meets, which is sort of the business version, multi-member version of Google Hangouts, which many of us maybe have on our Android phones as a two-way conversation chatting platform. And it would appear that Google is intending to build out that Google Meets platform for business and compete with Zoom. When I looked at it this morning, there are some limitations. I didn't see anything about breakout rooms. I didn't see anything about audio settings for any sort of musical engagements. So it looks like there are things that they probably are working on frantically in the background. But just as an FYI, with some of the challenges that Zoom has had with the Zoom bombing that we've talked about in some past sessions that I've not experienced yet. I don't know if any of you have. But so Google seems to be pretty serious about rolling out a competing video conferencing platform that they're pretty serious about because they're not letting their employees use Zoom anymore.
Could I make a comment?
Please, absolutely, Russ.
It's Russ Milan, and for those who didn't hear me 2 sessions ago, I didn't make the last one. My partner and I have been in virtual organization. We're specialists in organizational development in virtual organizations, virtual teams, and teaching trainers how to train virtually. and we wrote 3 books on it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we were deeply into the technology as of about 3 or 4 years ago. We weren't into Zoom then. And the top product for teaching in our minds was Adobe Connect, which you never see mention of anymore. But Adobe Connect allows you to build layouts, different layouts on your screen, flip between them, have engaging multi-chat exercises and stuff like that. It's a phenomenal product. And then the other one that we helped our clients with, if they asked us what to use, was Webex. Webex is still a solid product today. I still use it. I'm retired, but I use it for the Toronto Railway Museum, where I'm one of the heavy-duty working directors there, and we use Webex. Now, Webex has gone competitive with Zoom, and they've upped their free account allows you to go to 100 people on the account, just like Zoom, with no time limits. Now, Zoom gives you some time limit relief if you're a nonprofit or whatever. But with Webex, you just go straight. I'm not recommending any product, just giving you a feel for them. I've been digging into Zoom now because York University, where a partner of ours delivers major courses, is going with Zoom. And so I dug around to see what are the issues around Zoom. And simply put, there are security and privacy issues about how the founders of Zoom have developed it, for which they've apologized, stopped building new features, and concentrating totally on improving security and privacy. For most people, the security and privacy doesn't matter too much unless you're doing secret government work or whatever. And the other thing about Zoom is there's some issues about when you download the little product and put it in your computer, that it doesn't behave like it should. I'm not going to get into details. I've not tried to understand it, but I don't think that impacts hardly anybody at all using Zoom. I'm impressed with Zoom's quality of the video, and I was really impressed by another friend of ours who put on an online course using Zoom, and I watched the video of the online course, and it is really high quality, which 3 or 4 years ago was not true of recordings on Webex or Adobe Connect. So one would have to try that on their own. The other platform that is being recommended to us is Microsoft's Teams. If you have a copy of Office 365, a license for Office 365, like I do, an annual license, I didn't even know about it, but they're getting aggressive in this kind of a offering with Microsoft Teams, but I have no reports on how good or bad it is. And of course, Google's trying to get in, everybody's trying to get into it right now. So that's just the benefit of what I said. And you mentioned this was about virtual meetings. And I mentioned last time that if you go to my partner and I's website, even though we're retired, we still have a website, because people want to buy our intellectual capital, of which we have an immense amount right now. At our website, we sell our 3 books. And one of them, because of the pandemic, we're now offering for free. It's called Best Practices for Virtual Meetings. And it's got a bunch of best practices in it. The examples may be a little dated technology-wise, but that shouldn't be relevant. What you really should be looking for best practices, because they're applicable to Zoom and anything else you're using. Yeah. And so I'll toss up in the chat there our website right on the front page. You click on a button and you download the PDF. You don't have to give us any information or whatever. Just help yourselves. It's a gift to the world.
And I looked at that resource when you shared it with us last week, Russ, and it's an excellent resource. I encourage you all to, even if you're not digging through it right today, to like have it at hand, put it in a tab, put it on your favorites, or download it and print it out and read it later. But yeah, this is not supposed to be a Zoom endorsement in any way, shape, or form. That just happens to be the platform that Dr. Katie and I have been on and that we know the best. Michael was asking in the chat a question about Webex that I don't know the answer to, and other than to say, so his question is he's has scheduled meetings on Webex but hasn't received any links or password options to send out. Part of the answer to that question is, Michael, whether you did the invitation and meeting setup in Canvas, which Webex links into Canvas, or whether you did it outside of Canvas, just in Webex itself. And I don't know if the rest of you folks that use Webex more routinely would have an answer for Michael.
Were you asking me, Russ? No.
I was asking the group in general. Michael was posing the question about WebEx invitations and links to share.
Yeah, even though we've used WebEx very heavily, we've never linked to anything else, so I have no comment.
Okay. So Michael, I can try to track that down for you if you'd like, but I don't know right now, and maybe we can talk whether or not you scheduled those sessions in Canvas.
Michael's last question, Teo, is WebEx the same as Cisco WebEx, and Cisco is the vendor. So yes.
Okay. So Russ, thank you for that.
Yeah, WebEx 3 or 4 years ago, WebEx had 70% of the virtual collaboration services marketplace. I don't know what they have today. Zoom has really gone crazy in the last few years. And I think they have 200 million Zoom meetings a day. And so I have nothing against Zoom. I think you just have to be your eyes open. What are the weaknesses, etc. I think for most purposes, Zoom is fine. We're using it as well as WebEx.
Can I ask one question quickly? Does WebEx have?
So I want to be very clear. This is today an open forum session. So yes, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. Unmute yourself. Go ahead. We're here to support one another. One of us might know the answer, or one of us might know where to go track it down.
Okay, thank you. I put one question in the chat about breakout rooms. It's one of the reasons that I really prefer Zoom over WebEx, and I was wondering if I had somehow missed where breakout rooms are in WebEx.
My understanding is that WebEx does have a breakout room feature that is not currently enabled through the license that BGSU is providing for WebEx.
Okay, thank you.
Russ, you're muted if you're responding.
My guess is that WebEx free account probably doesn't have breakout rooms, but they had versions which were learning environment versions, etc. And I suspect that they do.
So Michael, are you seeing the chat that Fernanda has some insight? You can share that, Fernanda, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and share that tip for Michael. And
I've been using WebEx for course meetings with all of my courses. And in order to use it in Canvas, you need to enable it. So you need to go to navigations and the settings and enable it so that it appears in the menu. So you'll see on the left side of all the different menus that students and you can access. So it needs to be there. So you first have to enable it in the settings through the navigation and save that. And then it'll appear in Canvas so that you can just go ahead and schedule meetings.
the same is true, by the way, for the breakout room feature in Zoom. It is not automatically enabled for your account. You have to go find that subsetting, enable it for your account to then be able to create breakout rooms in a Zoom session.
Fernanda, I'm in my BGSU now and on Canvas, and the navigation link that you're talking about, I don't see what am I?
Are you in one of your courses in Canvas?
No, I'm not. Let me do that.
So open up one of your courses, and on the left side, when you open up the course, you'll see at the bottom of the left margin settings. So open up settings.
All righty.
And from settings, so settings is on the left margin.
Yep, I opened up settings.
Okay, at the top, then you'll see another menu and you'll see navigation.
Okay.
So then open that up.
Got it. And there's WebEx. I see it.
So then you see menus that are enabled for your Canvas course. So there are some that may not, like pages or files or whatever. I don't know what you've been.
Let me jump in for 1 second in terms of virtual meeting practice. Michael, go ahead and share your screen, because right now Fernanda is guessing at talking you through where you are, but she can't see where you are at. So if you can share your screen with that same information, then Fernanda can actually see and say, hey, no, just below that, because you'll see where your mouse is on the screen as you're trying to find those right options, and she can help you out better that way.
And so can everybody else see it, which is the value of doing it collectively.
Right. Okay, so I do see it that you have it enabled. So make sure that you save at the bottom of the screen where it says save.
All righty.
Okay, so then you can go back to your, you can see that it's on the left margin, and you can just click on Webex. There you go. So now you can schedule an event, your meeting with your class.
Okay.
And the students will get an invitation for this because this is directly within the course that you're scheduling it. So
I
just
see.
click on schedule. Okay, then you need to decide, is it going to be a single meeting or weekly? The time zone, the day you're going to have the meeting.
I see. Uh-huh.
And then just make, decisions about the date and the time.
Thank you. This is very helpful.
Yes.
Just a reminder also that we have that share document. I'm going to put the link here into our chat in 1 second. I believe that Patrick, one of the IT staff for BGSU, had mentioned that they have a set of like videos that talk through, I believe this was one of them, setting up a WebEx meeting. And the links for that set of videos is in our document somewhere. Let's see if I can find it and point it out to you guys specifically.
I know there's one.
And remember to save it.
Yes.
I'll tell you a funny anecdote on saving. I was in a computer class in 2003, and we were building a very rudimentary website, and the professor was like, "Okay, save your work, save your work." He would say this like every 5 minutes, "Save your work."
He didn't do it.
About halfway through the project, he literally left the room, excused himself, have to take a phone call from my mom or some excuse, and pulled the breaker on the entire computer lab. So he came back in it. Did you save? And some of us were just cursing at the screens because, of course, we hadn't saved every 5 minutes. So we had lost that whole session's work or wherever our last save point would be. But I'm for the rest of my life, I'm like, if there's not an autosave I can enable, I'm sure as heck going and saving all the time.
There you go.
Okay. I thought I was doing it weekly through May, but it only came up for next week.
You probably check the other calendars.
Event calendar?
Yeah, check those. It should be, if you advance the calendar to next week, you should be able to see them.
I think they're all there, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. Yay.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Fernanda.
You're welcome.
I do have another question. So I understand now, please, God, let me remember this, or this is saved, right? So I can always go back and look at this, Teo?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank God. Scheduling office hours. So since that's not through a class, can I still do that through Canvas? So I could do WebEx office hours.
You can schedule a time, just like you just scheduled these meetings. You can schedule office hours as a WebEx meeting.
Okay, but since I needed to come to my class to do this, where do I go to set up something that's not through the class?
I think
So I've got more students that have access, like my advisees can have access to that.
I think that you might have a personal room. I don't recall where that would be. But if you log into Cisco Web, I can't remember the pathway into it, but I think you put in WebEx BGSU and then it'll show you your personal room, which is a link, and that you can share with everybody. But unfortunately, I only have a partial explanation.
Well, let's see, WebEx BGSU, let's go there.
The
Do I want
desk map.
resources and tips, or do I want WebEx BGSU? Or start a WebEx meeting?
I don't know for sure.
Michael, in the document that I just shared the link to at tinyurl teaching online transition, under item 4, there are several, like a whole YouTube playlist, and then BGSU WebEx best practices. I would have to believe, because we've talked about it, I'm going to try to find that meeting too, but
Did you share that in the chat? Is that where that is, Teo?
say that again?
Did you share that in the chat? Is that where that is? Or where
Yes.
did you share that?
Right now, if you look at the chat, there is a http tinyurl.com. If you throw
Do I
that,
have to unshare to be able to look at the chat?
it's probably easier. Yes.
Yes.
You don't have to, but yes, it's probably easier for you to get there that way. And I'll share in your stead and share on that screen. So I'm going to kick you off your share.
Thank you. I was trying to figure out how to do that.
And so this is our document, tinyurl.com teaching online transition. That link is in the chat. And here under item 4.2 is resources for WebEx from BGSU's IT. And up here are all the different sessions and meeting notes. And one of them we talked about personal rooms in WebEx. If I can try identify the right meeting, I'll let you know that as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions or maybe even insight of things that you have learned or realized over these past couple of weeks of working virtually that you want to share that were meaningful?
Christina has a question.
Yeah.
You put it in the chat.
Right. Just a quick question about online quizzes that I'm experimenting with. Is there an easy way to extend the hour for one specific student who has special needs? Everybody else has to take the test or the quiz for 30 minutes, and she'd have to have an extra 15 minutes. I know that there's an add student underneath to change the dates for online quizzes, but I couldn't find I've been looking around. I know I did it once where I've expanded the time frame for that one student.
Great question.
I know it worked once for me, but I can't remember. I couldn't reconstruct it. Or do I just have to set up a new quiz?
Would that be a Canvas feature? That would be a Canvas feature.
Yeah, it's a Canvas question. It's a Canvas question.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Teo, can she pull it up on the screen for us?
If you have it, absolutely, yeah. If you have it at hand, you want to share your screen.
I can get into it very quickly. Hold on a second.
While you're looking, I think there's like where it says everyone, you can take that off and just put one student's name, and maybe that would be where you can adjust the date or the time.
Well, I can adjust the date, but not the here. Can I share?
Yeah, please. By all means.
Please.
Okay.
And while you do that, wanted to make sure you guys caught Russ shared in the chat that WebEx does integrate with Microsoft Outlook, and I believe that's the tool that Canvas is using to access your calendars.
So this is my quiz, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a 30-minute here, and let students see, and so on. And then I've got assigned to everyone here, and I thought, well, then I'll assign another one and choose another person here. But it only gives me this information right here, and it doesn't give me a chance to redo this.
Yeah, but you could change the time, like you could enter available from until, and you could expand the time there.
Yeah, that's what you could do there, Christina.
But does that
Yes.
just
That solves my problem, because I don't really care. They have access to this exam, 3 days, but they should only have it. This person should only have. Everybody has 30 minutes, and she's supposed to have 45 minutes, and I can't, because it's a timed.
I know it's maybe a little cumbersome, but is there an easy way to just copy this quiz and rather than assign to everyone but that student, and then make a copy of the quiz that's set for 45 minutes that you assign to just that student with the same availabilities as far as the dates they can take it?
I wouldn't mind doing that, but I'm not sure whether there's an easy way to copy it. I mean, I can certainly do that.
For some reason, I thought there was a way to just copy the whole thing. Is it in the 3 dots at the top?
Something else that maybe you can try, Christina, is if you don't mind giving that student, like after all of the other students have already submitted it, you can extend the date where it says until, and then just change the time and just assign it. Everyone else has already turned it in, and then just change the time for her, and she has maybe a day or 2 longer.
Okay. I mean, I know that there was another way to do this, and I'll stop sharing. I know that there was another way to do this because I was successful 2 weeks ago, but I can't remember. I can't seem to figure out how I did that. So I'll see whether I can just maybe cut and paste.
Can you pull up your quiz from 2 weeks ago and see where there might be a difference?
Oh, I might do that. That's what I might do. That's a good idea. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I just typed, Christina, I just typed extend test duration and Canvas for 1 student into Google, and it appears that there is an extend time button once the quiz is active. But I don't know if that's then for all students or just for 1.
Okay. It's worth a try.
I'm looking at the chat to try to make sure. Did everybody catch the offer that Russ made, that you can go to virtualteams.com and download the free copy of their best practices for virtual team meetings? It's really a really great resource. So I'll throw that.
Feel free to pass it
on. For those that came late, I'm going to throw that link down here again in the chat. Sorry, was I cutting you off, Russ? I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, feel free to pass it on to the world. You know, we're hoping that it'll help anybody out there who's now facing the challenge of meeting online instead of in person. So,
thank you. Does anyone have a good way of evaluating discussion board posts on Canvas? Having been a student of Dr. Katie's, I would say that yes, he does. And he wants to share that on Tuesday with us. I think that was part of the intention for a focused conversation around discussion boards, how to leverage them. I'll share with you from a student perspective that what was helpful to me was that discussion boards were never the whole class. It was always smaller subsets of, I want to say 5 to 8. And there was always sort of an initial post, like a small essay that you would offer on a challenging question. And that had a due date. Let's say the discussion board went public. I want to say that was maybe 5 days or a week till you had to have that first post up. And then there was another week or so to have conversation then back and forth between the people in that group around the respective posts. And I believe he has like a grading rubric that is fairly specific into what it looks at as far as, one is just quantity. Are you going in? Are you answering? Are you giving reasonable responses? But not just quantity. Yeah, that's a great point. But also, you know, what's the substance for those responses? But I'm sure that he will be happy to share that with you in detail. And the intention is to do that this coming Tuesday at our 11 o'clock session.
Oh, this is Jen too. Oh yeah, you see me. One of the things that I found, I'm in a doctoral program at BG. And one of the things that I found is that Dr. Katie is really good at doing that. some of the other professors are still struggling, because if you would have our discussion board, for example, let's say that we need to have our initial post up on a Wednesday, and then we had to respond to other students by Sunday. So he was able to put that actually as part of the assignment and put a separate entry into Canvas for that Wednesday as well as the Sunday. Some of the other professors that I've had through my electives haven't done that. And so there's been students that have missed the deadline of the Wednesday, let's just say the Wednesday example of the initial post, and they don't go and get it done. And then the rest of us don't have an opportunity to go in and make comments about that because they're thinking that it's done on that Sunday. So hopefully Dr. Katie will review how to do that, because I know my one professor is struggling with actually doing that, and it's caused some miscommunication and some grades that have been lowered because people haven't gotten things in on time. So there's a little bit of a disconnect.
If I remember, and this might have changed, but if I remember correctly, it's the deadline is set for that initial post, and then he just extends it and leaves it open for the extra week to do the responses. Go ahead, Beatrice.
Okay. I was curious from the student's point of view, to what extent does the faculty member get involved in the discussion? Because I'm always afraid to co-opt the discussion. So how did that work for you guys? Did Steve actually participate, or did he just let you talk amongst yourselves? And of course, you're not looking at it as undergrads, you're looking at it more from the doctoral point of view, so that will make a difference.
Yeah, mine was in a master's program, and he did not participate in discussion boards. That was purely the students in conversation with one another. And then depending on the context for that particular challenge, maybe there would have been a report out then in a, in a virtual session or an in-person session of review of that discussion board.
That's the same way that it's happening with me, that Dr. Katie hasn't done anything within our discussions as a class, but once he comes back on my rubric and talks about my interaction on the discussion board, that's where he gives and provides his comments. I have had one of my other professors that will actually go in and say, oh, that's really interesting, or have you thought about this as well? Or if we pose a question, for example, in a discussion board, and that professor didn't find that anybody was answering the question, she went in and made a comment in there. But it wasn't to the degree of grading, if you want to say, or commenting. It was more of a trying to help me get through whatever the discussion board was. And I thought that was really helpful. Because sometimes when a question is posed, if the professor didn't jump in, we didn't know. We're like, I don't know. I don't know how to do this, or things like that.
One point that I think I offered a couple of weeks ago that was critical for me as a student was that it's always Wednesday and it's always Sunday. That I sort of can have sort of that safety and routine to know discussion boards go up on this date. I have this many days. It's always Wednesday at midnight. I have to have that first post in, and then my responses always have to be done the following, or whatever that schedule might be, but that there's a routine to that where I don't have to guess at and double check the calendar.
That's extremely helpful, Teo, because also especially the classes that we have that are, some of them are 7 weeks, if you miss that first understanding, and it could go on and perpetuate because the discussion board grades don't come out before the next one is due. So we've had some of those issues, that especially being very upfront, that and the other thing that I found is really extraordinarily helpful is when the professors have put the calendar on Canvas, because I'm really detailed like that I'll go through the calendar to see what's due when. And going back to the individual that was struggling, that didn't have the initial discussion due on Wednesday, that was another reason why some people missed it, because they're following, especially if they have multiple classes going on, hopefully they're following that calendar when things are due.
Just one
I
question.
just had a really interesting
Yeah.
observation. This is by coincidence, not by design, but it seems to me that these sessions would be enormously richer if student point of view was part of it. You just were very specific, Teo, when you said from a student point of view. And Jen chimed in. But that might be the first time in all these conversations, and you've participated as a student whenever you're here. I don't know what structurally I'm suggesting, but I wonder, and I'd like faculty to chime in, would it be valuable to get students to potentially come to these?
Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, Carol. My ears just popped open when I was listening to the two of you talking, Jen and Teal. I was thinking too about what kind of responses students expected to discussion boards, since I'm using this for in this intense way for the first time. And so at first I thought I'm not going to say anything. And they certainly have good discussions, and then they have to respond to one another. I love the fact that they're so kind when they respond to one another, and thoughtful, and expand on what they have said to one another. This is a fourth year class. And then I feel, though, that they would like responses from me. And so in Speed Grader, I write all this stuff. I try to mirror back what I hear, and you know, and I'm just wondering how seriously that is taken, and how, you know, what the expectations are with this discussion board.
And I have had both instances. So I've had professors who don't, like Dr. Katie didn't, but Dr. Brodke did, or Dr. Troutman did, and, you know, put some information in there to continue our discussion. So we were broken up in Dr. Brodke's class, for example, in a small group. And so our small group was that discussion. And then if we posed questions, she would actually inject in that small group. So I think part of it's also based on the assignment and what you're trying to get out of the individuals, because the way in which Dr. Katie posed questions was truly based on what do we think the difference is between IO Psych and org development, for example. Where Dr. Brodke was saying, here is your assignment and here is your open time to talk through your assignment. And so she came in and answered questions. So I think, unfortunately, it's going to be, it depends on what you're actually asking the students to do within that discussion board.
I think it'd be an interesting thing to consider, like, do you have on purpose and with advanced warning to your students, hey, this discussion board is just you. You're going to talk about it, and when you're all done talking about it, I'm going to evaluate it. I'm going to share the rubric for evaluation with you, how and why you got what you got. But this is for you to have a conversation. The next discussion board, I am going to be an active participant, and this is, you know, the challenge because it's interesting to me too. I want to hear what you have to say about A, B, C, and D, and I will chime in. I'm trying to think back on the classes that I've had. I don't think I had too much of the second one, but that, you know, maybe there's value in both. I don't know that it would have to be one or the other. And maybe in the same class, have one that's with the teacher and one that's without. Carol, the point that you were making, though, is thinking out loud, should we try to make an effort to invite a student to our Tuesday and Thursday sessions here? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that you don't want them to take over, but I observed this. I mean, you could play the role of student to some extent, but it just struck me how interesting and useful that was. It was only an observation.
Yeah.
No, Dr. Katie sent an invite to my cohort. I don't know if he included the MOD cohort or other students. So I think there's still 15 of us. to these sessions. Specifically, I thought it was for today, so that's why I popped on too. But I think it is for Tuesday. But he did invite us to come if that helps. But I know that you all have different levels of programs that you're teaching, so it may not behoove to have all of us as doctorate students that are in it.
Yeah, I certainly think that there's a distinction in if I think of my maturity in discussion boards as an undergraduate student versus how I interacted on those as a master's student versus how I hope to interact on them when I get to my doctorate studies. There was a question about BGSU, ITS in terms of Zoom or what else. I don't know if there's an exact rule or regulation. My best understanding, Michael, is, this is Michael Goetz asking, that BGSU IT is discouraging people from focusing on Zoom exclusively for their sessions because it's not integrated into Canvas and the university doesn't offer a license for it. So they're limited in terms of how they can support it, whereas Webex is integrated into Canvas and the university has a license. And so there's just a different set of support that they would be able to offer. I've not heard that they're saying, don't use Zoom because of the security issues, you can't, but I think they're encouraging use of Webex because of the support. The security issue, if I may touch on that real quick, if you use in Zoom features like registration for classes or sessions rather, you can use the waiting room feature. I've never experienced yet, and I do Zoom, it feels like 24 hours ever since this went into lockdown or stay at home orders. I've yet to be Zoom bombed, and I probably just jinxed myself and somebody's going to show up right now and say hello guys with their underpants off. But there are some ways that you can combat it in the way you set up your sessions. There's a lot of resources if you type that into a Google search to how to, security features for Zoom. So I think there are ways to reasonably protect yourself. One of the things that Patrick from IT offered in a session, I believe last week, was that if you ever get Zoom bombed and somebody shows up, there are ways to mute that individual if you're the host. And they can be in your session, but they can't talk, they can't share their screen. That's actually the recommended version rather than removing them from your session, because the way that these are set up, the people that are trying to do this trolling, that maybe their video game broke or something, they're out here to troll Zoom meetings. If you remove somebody from the session, that basically sends a signal to all the other trolls to now go to that active session and try to do what their colleague just failed in doing. There's a question about accessing polls during Zoom sessions. I've had them be laggy. So I sometimes had to, I make sure that I communicate with participants, hey, can you guys see this poll? And even though mine shows and says that your viewers can now see the poll, they said, no, it's not there. So I just canceled it and restarted it. And the second time it has worked every time. But that was my experience, that there was just some lag, and make sure that your participants can see, don't assume because Zoom is telling you it's up. Same with results, like share the results. They couldn't see it the first time, they could see it the second time, but then on the second time I shared a poll, it went away. Does that, I don't know if that's helpful, Christina, if that's Steve. Okay. I'm curious, those of you that haven't shared, Michael and Akiko, do you have any questions, any concerns that we can address as a group? We have about 12 more minutes before the top of the hour.
Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry that I got in a little bit late because I had another meeting, with Webex. And then also I would like to come in, Tuesday and Thursdays, but I have a Tuesdays, I have a, student with, with the, Webex, and until 11:30, I just would like to know, this was so nice, some of the things I knew, some of the things I didn't know. So that was great, but is it okay to come in at like 11:30 on Tuesday?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll just have a class with the students.
And so I don't know when you joined us. I want to make sure that you have the link to our capture document where you can go back into resources from previous meetings.
Okay.
So let me, for some reason it didn't turn into a link when I posted it the last time.
I think I've been getting the email,
okay.
From you, and then, right, I've been.
if you go to tinyurl.com, teaching online transition, and I don't know why it's not becoming an active link when I post it. I'm not sure what I'm doing there.
It does.
Oh,
It
it does?
did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the
I
chat
think
it
so,
does.
yeah.
Okay.
Akiko, what do you teach?
I teach Japanese language and culture.
Oh,
So so I've been really a little bit different, you know. I cannot go just for discussion. I've been
Right.
constantly with the students, you know, through the Webex and then Skype and the email. Email is just constantly coming in and out. So actually, I've been, you know, using the email for each, you know, individual person too,
wow.
and just spending so much time. But I'm hoping that then it's worth, you know, for the students and stuff. Just the language is a little bit, you know. So if we, you know, I know that I see that, you know, the Beatrice and then Christina there, and it's nice to see you. If there's any, you know, questions, and but like a quiz, and when I do the quiz, just like I know Christina was telling us, and then some of the students needed a longer, so I have to send them, you know, the later, and then to through email, and I have to. I've been, you know, doing it because I didn't know that there was a good, you know, way to do it. So I have been using the email too individually, you know, for students who are late coming in. You know, I have a class at 8:30 and 9:30, you know, so I've been doing it the Webex for twice a week. And then twice is I've been making a lot of recordings to go with each, you know, activities and each sort of PowerPoint, you know, things. And so they can listen to it, but you know, always some of the students are late, you know, coming into the 8:30 class. I don't blame them in a way, you know. So I've been doing it for each individual student, you know, through email. So spending a lot of more time, but at least I can see the students, you know, through Webex and then Skype, both.
Yeah.
So if there's any good way to see the students, you know, interaction, you know, I will be very happy to know it.
Yeah, I think we've touched on some of those things in previous sessions. One of the things that I think several of your colleagues offered was to have a check-in at the beginning of the session, so that each student has to, even if it's for 2 minutes, speak and be heard, and maybe sort of lower the resistance or the discomfort in being on this kind of session. Akiko, one note on your video feed: you are in front of a beautifully bright window, which means I can't see your face at all.
Okay, I can probably, you know, close the blind.
Just as an FYI. Michael Götz has his hand up. Please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question. Are you able to share your video at all, Michael?
No, not right now, but I have a question, and this is Mike Goyce. I'm in biology. What I'm doing is getting assignments back. Can you hear me, Theo? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So I'm getting assignments sent to me, emailed, worksheets, that kind of thing, and even exams. Then I modify them, I save them under a new file name, and then I email them back. A lot of work. Is there a way in Canvas where the student can put them in their own folder? Is there a place in Canvas? Well, first of all, maybe there's a better solution in Canvas I'm not familiar with, but what I'd like to see as a first approximation would be just each student have their own box, more or less, in Canvas. I go to that box like a drive, and I go and I look at their document, I modify it, and I put it back. Without having to have them sent to me through email. Is there a way to do that?
Jen, are you responding? I don't recall. No, okay. I am not sure. Does anyone?
No, I was just saying Google Doc. If
Yeah.
if you're using Google Doc, that's easier, because then that way you can share the document, make the updates if you're actually wanting to share those.
But there the issue would be, are you suggesting that I use each student's own Google Doc where they give access to me? I go to their Google Doc, I work there, and then so obviously it would have to be secure to only that student.
I would suggest, number one, I think it would save you the emailing back and forth. The other piece, I would suggest you create a template and make 12 copies, or however, you know, I don't know if you have 180 students or if you have 30 students or 12. But you could be the owner of the document, share it with that student, give them edit privileges, and that way it's on your drive and you're controlling the security and share options for that document. You invite the student via their BGSU email to be an editor on that document. They can enter, you know, whatever that assignment might be. And
I think I see what you're saying. So create in Google Doc a document for each student, with say their
That's my suggestion off the top of my dome. There may be an answer in Canvas that I don't know, but I'm
Okay.
running here with the idea with the Google Doc where, yeah, I would suggest that you are the owner and create it.
So that would be secure. The student would only be able to get to that one document that I give them access to as an editor.
Exactly. Yep.
There is a place in Canvas. Dr. Troutman used it in Principles of Learning class from BG. There is a place in Canvas that's called Collaboration, and she set up a question in there, and that's where we had to put our annotated documents. And she and I went back and forth on that, so she could actually comment in Canvas, and you didn't have to go through any exchange of a Google Doc. And so I don't know very much about setting it up, and so maybe we could ask Dr. Katie on Tuesday how to do that, or Google it. But there is a way within the course that she set up a collaboration, and it was just the two of us. And then she put the information in, and then I would put my annotations in, and then she would comment, and then we'd go back and forth through there.
Was it like Google Doc where both of you could be online and you have a sort of an avatar and you're both can work at the same time simultaneously?
I don't know that. We didn't do that because it was more of a, here's when something, put two annotations in there, and then she would respond back, and then put two different annotations in there and she would respond back. We never had the opportunity to go at the same time to edit at the same time. So I don't know if that's available or not.
Yeah, that wouldn't be necessary, but I was just wondering. But that sounds good. Would there be, for an exam though, you would want to really have them submit it and then not have access to it while you're correcting it or grading it, and then giving them access at a later time? Is it possible to have temporary restrictions on them and then restore them?
Michael, I was thinking that maybe you would want to give it as an assignment in Canvas. Create an assignment with whatever it is that you want them to do with the document, and give it to the whole class. And then individually they submit their draft or their annotations to the document or whatever it may be, so that each student then has their own individual submission. You can go in and you can comment, you can grade.
Yeah.
Actually, that does sound good. I haven't used that at all. I've kind of had minimal use of Canvas.
Yeah.
I usually just use it for file exchanges and that kind of thing. And
So that's what I do. Yeah, I know all the worksheets and the workbook pages, and I put it on an assignment, and then I will have, they will submit it. Most of the students do know they have submitted. So then I will make a comment, I will correct it for each one, and then I'll put it back, send it back. But always some of the students are a little bit later, late. And then because of that, there is because of it, every day I have an assignment every day, so I have to correct it every day. So they have to do it in a particular time, so the next day, before the next assignment comes in. So some of the students are late. Then in that case, they are sending me to the email, and then I will correct them, and then I will send them back. But I know there was somebody was mentioning about the collaboration, and then everything I can do it on Canvas. That would be wonderful, so I can keep them, right now is I'm having a folder, in email that all the students wanted to coming in, and then I know, of course, and a lot of them coming in for the faculty and stuff, and then I have to be having this folder on the email. So that would be nice if I can do everything on the Canvas.
that sounds kind of like what I wanted, but is it secure? When the student submits an assignment and then you modify it, where you send it back to the student, or?
Yes, each one. So I correct them, because of the language, you have so many, to the correction for each one, good students to papers, and it doesn't take much time, but then, some of the students who really needed the help, and I have to write a comment, okay, so you have to study this and this and this, and then I have to put them back for each student. And so it does take time, but as long as if the students are getting it, that would be really nice. But of course, it's so much different from the, person to person, in class
So are you
yeah,
using some type of, sorry, is there some type of markup feature where I like using Word because I can go ahead and create a different color font for my own comments? And
Can I respond to you, Michael?
I'm sorry?
Can I respond to your question about the grading?
Yes.
You don't have to download their documents. You can do the grading and you can highlight and you can write comments right in the margin of the student's document directly in Canvas. Sometimes I will download their document, then I use the Microsoft Word and I'll do review comments. But generally you can comment directly in Canvas. When you go to the SpeakGrader, you open up their document and you start reading it through Canvas, and then you can write notes, you can highlight, and the students will then be able to open that up. They can see that view feedback next to the grade. There's a little icon for view feedback. So, you know, that's, you know, a really easy way to also comment. And
okay. All right. So they have it has its own markup features that are pretty good, and the student gets to see them after you modified it.
Right.
And what I'm also hearing is you can download to have a hard copy. I want to have a secure copy and not.
You can also download it, and then you can re-upload it, so that you can also do that if you want. I know some of the writing teachers in the English department do that. I have a tendency to give them comments directly in Canvas because it has a highlighter, it has comments that I can write, so it's just very easy and it's accessible for them and for me.
Yeah, that sounds like what I should be using. That's assignment. It's all under assignment in Canvas?
Yes, you create assignments, then they submit them. There's a due date. They submit them, then you go in and you grade the assignment through SpeakGrader.
Okay. I guess I don't want to take up too much time. I think we're over already here. Was this supposed to run an hour? Or?
Yes. So thank you for that wonderful segue, Michael. Those of you that are still here, I want to invite you to a session tomorrow that is a conversation at 1 p.m. the afternoon, how we stay sane with these back-to-back video meetings. Ironically, it's going to be an online session where we're going to talk about how to stay sane with all the video meetings. The link is in the chat if you are interested in that. Thank you all so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday if you want to dig into discussion boards specifically. And any other time, even if you're half an hour late, Akiko, thank you for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Teo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your help too. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Fernanda, Michael, and Akiko.
Yeah, thank you. It was very nice.